Alright, imagine this. It's August, the sun's beating down on Athens, and government officials are locked in a high-stakes sprint to meet deadlines that could determine Greece's economic future. No, this isn't a thriller movie, it's reality. The Ministry of National Economy is scrambling to finalize the last milestones for the EU's Recovery and Resilience Facility, a program that's already allocated €35.95 billion to Greece since 2021. But here's the kicker. If they fail to cross the finish line by 2026, the consequences could be massive. Let's unpack why this matters, and why I think this moment is a litmus test for the EU's entire recovery strategy. Let's start with the numbers. The final grant and loan requests? A combined €6.7 billion. That sounds like a lot, and it is, but what's more fascinating is how this cash infusion fits into Greece's broader economic chessboard. Since 2021, the country has been juggling grants, loans, and reforms to prove it can build back better. But here's what many overlook. This isn't just about money. It's about whether Greece can shift from being a perennial crisis story to a model of sustainable growth. Personally, I think this is the real test. Can a nation historically defined by debt crises and bureaucratic inertia really use EU cash to reinvent itself? Or is this just another temporary band-aid? Now, the final milestones, 123 of them, are tied to projects like repairing storm-damaged infrastructure and finishing Crete's Northern Road Axis. But construction delays, weather disruptions, and bureaucratic red tape are looming threats. One thing that immediately stands out is how vulnerable these timelines are to chaos. Remember Storm Daniel in 2023? That disaster didn't just flood cities. It exposed how fragile Greece's infrastructure really is. So, tying recovery funds to rebuilding these systems makes sense, but is it realistic? In my opinion, this highlights a paradox. The places that need investment most often struggle to execute it efficiently. It's a catch-22 that plagues development globally. Then there's the Hellenic Development Bank certification, a bureaucratic checkpoint that unlocked €2 billion for SMEs. Why is this detail fascinating? Because small businesses are the backbone of any economy, yet in Greece, they've long been starved of capital. This move could be transformative if the loans actually start flowing by September. But let's not forget, Greece's banking sector has been a minefield of non-performing loans for decades. So, how confident should we be that this time, the system won't come up again? What this really suggests is that structural change isn't just about funding, it's about trust, accountability, and systemic overhauls that outlast political cycles. And here's where the plot thickens. Economists are split. Some argue the RRF has forced Greece to modernize its bureaucracy and digitize services, which is undeniable progress. Others? They're skeptical. They point to Greece's chronic underinvestment in innovation and ask, has this program truly reshaped the production model? From my perspective, this debate misses the bigger picture. The RRF isn't just about Greece. It's a blueprint for how the EU handles crises. If Greece fails to leverage this funding into long-term growth, what does that say about the EU's ability to engineer recovery in Southern Europe? And if it succeeds, could this become a template for Italy, Spain, or even post-war Ukraine? But let's zoom out further. By 2027, EU funding is set to drop by nearly 40%. This raises a deeper question. What happens when the money spigot slows? Greece's economy has relied on these injections to fund everything from green energy projects to healthcare reforms. Without them, will the country's growth stall? Or will the RRF's investments finally spark private sector confidence? If you take a step back and think about it, the entire EU recovery strategy hinges on the idea that public spending can catalyze private investment. But what if that theory collapses post-2026? That's not just Greece's problem. It's a crisis waiting to happen for the entire bloc. So, where does this leave us? As the clock ticks down to 2026, Greece's race to complete these milestones isn't just about meeting deadlines. It's about proving that external funding can ignite internal transformation. But here's the truth I keep circling back to. Money alone isn't magic. The RRF's legacy will depend on whether Greece uses these billions to fix its structural weaknesses, or simply kicks the can down the road. And if history is any guide, the latter might be tempting. What do you think? Can EU cash truly rewrite a nation's destiny, or is this just another chapter in a never-ending story of dependency? Let me know in the comments, because this isn't just Greece's test. It's a lesson for all of us watching the EU's experiment in economic resurrection.